Okay, it is less than 1 week until the election in the United States for President of the United States. And these are 10 things that you have to be doing this week. Please. I mean, I don't know how much to beg you, but you never know what's going to happen. Now, personally, I think on Wednesday morning, we are not going to know who is president. And it's going to be quite a while before we know. I could be totally wrong on that. What's your 2 cents? Do you think we'll know on Wednesday?
I have no idea. It kind of looks like we might, but you just can't tell. I've noticed that I just can't get enthusiastic about it because...
Yeah. So here's the problem. People are like, well, Tara, you're just fear-mongering. No, we have no idea what's going to happen. If Trump gets elected, then BLM, Antifa, all those people who have not been prosecuted yet, but should be, could just go berserk like they did in 2020. Kamala gets elected. I don't know.
Could happen the other way.
Could happen the other way. People who know the election was stolen could lose their minds. So here's the thing. Just do these things in case something happens. If nothing happens, then at least you're prepared for no matter what. Number 1, please get water on hand.
Man, for any kind of emergency, water is the #1 thing.
Oh my goodness. I keep watching all of these videos from Hurricane Helene and people who have made it through. All of them are just shocked at how much water they need. Please get yourself a water filter. I have a video on how to make a homemade one, and the water filters are $20 off right now. So I'll leave the link in the description below for you. But I can make a homemade one for $60 instead of a Berkey for $400.
And we've even tested it in real life, and it works
We had
great.
to use it 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks we lived in this house.
Yeah.
It really worked well. I heard one comment that was like, well, we really pride ourselves on not buying plastic water bottles and drinking water out of plastic. But after this, we've decided we need some plastic water bottles on hand. You think?
Some of those things that you worry about when there's an actual emergency, you just need to let it all go. Like, we're frugal. We don't spend a lot of money on things. But wow, during COVID, there were certain times where something was available and we bought it.
Yeah.
We didn't look at the price at that point. It's like, this is an emergency.
When they announced lockdowns at 5 o'clock at night in our town, they had announced lockdowns. Everything was getting closed. But let me tell you, at 8 o'clock the next morning, I dropped the kids off at school and I was at the grocery store buying $1,000 worth of groceries. Because I knew people were going to be making a run on the grocery stores and we would have a hard time getting stuff. And I got 3 grocery carts worth of groceries. Why? Because we were trying to move and my stockpile had gotten down and I wanted to make sure that we had everything we needed. And we had the cash, so we were able to do it.
Now, for those of you who are going to say, what, you bought $1,000 worth of stuff, you're just hoarding everything and stealing it out of the store. I'm just going to tell you, Tara didn't say I bought $1,000 worth of all the toilet paper.
I should have, though. Do you know how rich we'd be now if I would have done that?
She just spent a lot of money because our stockpile was gone buying different things, but she didn't go buy out something or buy the majority of it or shove an old lady on the ground to take it. So if you're going to comment on that, don't make up the thing in your own mind. That's not what she said, okay?
Actually, the little old ladies were shoving me.
Yeah, well, it happens. That's because they're older and they know.
Stop priding yourself on eating healthy, not using plastic, all of this ridiculous green, organic stuff that people keep talking about, and get yourself prepared. The next thing is food. She said, well, we really don't eat these kind of things, but you know, it was actually kind of nice to have some canned ravioli and canned spaghetti that we didn't have to cook. Yeah, it is.
I'd be curious to ask in a few months, hey, how you doing on that stuff now? Because I suspect those types of situations tend to make people relax a little bit on those things that the media and everybody's telling you to be obsessed about.
Listen, get you some food that doesn't need to be cooked. Keep crackers on hand, granola bars on hand, canned SpaghettiOs, canned raviolis, corn. You can eat corn without heating it up. All of those types of foods. But one of the things they said was propane and gas were non-existent. Even if we wanted to cook, we couldn't because we had no propane and gas. The next thing was get a generator. But guys, here's the problem with generators. You're not going to have gas possibly to run your generator. So unless you have a couple of 100 gallons of gas stored around wherever you live, you're not going to be able to rely on a generator. Now, if you can get a generator and you can afford one, that's fine. But stop worrying about things like losing the food in your freezer. Frankly, that is the last thing on my list that I'm worried about. When we were in Kansas, ice storm, which year was it? Was it ice? It would have been ice storm 2002, 3?
Somewhere in that age.
I think it was 2003.
I think it probably was.
Yeah, I think it was ice storm 2003. We had no power for 3 weeks. Now, it was in January, and it was a freak ice storm. It was 50 degrees that morning, dropping down to like 20 degrees that night, and it had started raining, and all the ice froze on the trees, and I was literally standing looking out. Our house was 2 levels, and I was looking out the top level, watching all the trees just snap off like toothpicks. I remember it so well. I was on the phone with my friend, and I was like, Jeanette, the trees are just snapping like toothpicks.
Like huge pieces of them would snap and fall off, and they ripped down all the power lines in a whole bunch of the town. So there was no way to get power anymore.
Not good. And thankfully, my brother had power, so we were able to go to his house. But our house, we just left the freezers. There was nothing we could do.
Did we unload them?
And no, we left them because what happened was then it ended up freezing. So we went from 50, and then what took 3 weeks was, it was so bitterly cold. Then after that, they couldn't get the power lines up because it was so bitterly cold.
And they had to trim all the trees and clear out space to get,
It was a mess, an absolute mess. So in that situation, if you live in a cold climate, let the weather work for you. Put your stuff, open your freezer doors if it's freezing out. Open your garage door, open your freezer door. Let the natural cold keep your food cold.
We've used that a lot.
Yeah.
Over the years.
A lot.
Yeah.
Put your food in boxes, wrap it in blankets, that'll insulate it. Put it in coolers, that'll insulate it. Just keep your freezer frozen or closed, and it'll stay frozen for probably up to a week when it's really cold out. So get a generator if you can, but honestly, I think people depend way too much on generators, and it will help, but the majority of people can't. Like if you're in an apartment or something, you can't have a generator.
Well, the thing about emergency preparedness too is you might get a generator, but you should always have other potential plans. Like people sometimes criticize Tara and say, well, what if our house gets flooded and our stockpile gets washed away? The thing about planning ahead is you have plans for multiple contingencies. So yeah, if that gets washed away, we have our buck-out bags. So it's the same thing with the generator. You know, you might want the generator, but you should have a plan if the generator is not available. You're
not going to be able to plan for everything. These last few videos that I've had, every single video, every hour of every day, I have had at least one person comment, well, that's not going to do you any good to stock up water if your house is washed away. Well, that's not going to do you any good if your house burns down. This is where I want to say no fecal matter, Sherlock. That's not the word I used to you, was it?
But the thing is, if you're the person that says that, and then you just don't plan, you're going to die.
You deserve what you get.
In a certain circumstance, you could die.
You're stuck. You deserve what you get.
Yeah, so instead of criticizing other people, you should just think, how could I be prepared to reduce the potential for a major disaster for us?
And you don't have to have thousands and thousands of dollars of food and all this stuff stored up. Just get some basic stuff. Now, on the generator, you know, with the election, what we're talking about is if there's riots and those kinds of things and power is knocked out that way, okay? That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Now, the next thing is get on the 4th. No, on the 5th. On the 5th. Gas up every single car you can.
Which day is election day?
The 5th.
Okay.
So on the 5th, on election day, because stuff's not going to happen until results start coming in. So on the 5th, make sure every car is filled up, all your gas cans are filled up and all of that. Make sure you have gas. The next thing is medication. Make sure if you're due to get your medications anytime soon, just get those renewed, get them picked up. Cash. Have some cash on hand. Ideally, it would be best to have $1,000 if you can, at least. But guys, remember, what was it, 4 months ago or something? Remember when all the power, or everything was just gone?
Oh, when the whole banking system went down.
Everything was gone.
Yeah.
You couldn't get anything.
Well, and like Tara was mentioning, in 2020, when they had all those riots, they were burning everything down and the local governments weren't doing anything about it in those states. That can mean you can't get to the bank, you can't get your medications, you can't go to the grocery store, you can't do anything if you happen to live there.
Yeah, so make sure you have cash on hand. Let's say you have to go buy something. If you're not stocked up on cough and cold medicine and you try to go buy it and you can't get it, well, maybe they would let you pay cash for it.
And you know what, even in just regular life situations, it's always good to have a couple weeks stockpile of some of these things, because then you have a little bit of padding, so you don't, if you run out of medicine when everybody's sick, you don't have to run to the store today.
Yeah. The next thing is have books on hand. Now, what kind of books? Guys, get our Dining on a Dime cookbook in the description below. Your phones, computers may not be able to work, and if you can, you might still have gas and be able to cook. But if you don't have power, let's say you have gas stove and you can still cook on your gas stove, but you don't have power and can't figure out how to cook some of these things. Do you know how to cook rice? Do you know how to cook beans if you need to? Do you know how to make taco seasoning if you can't get to the store? Dining on a Dime cookbook in the description below. Grab them, guys. You need to have a hard copy. Another thing is get a good book like the Encyclopedia of Country Living. That will tell you basic repairs, basic homesteading type things, so if you need to take care of those, and a basic medical book to help take care of medical, you know, minor things if you can't get to the doctor or whatever. So get all of those books, guys, so that you have physical copies in case you can't get on the internet to get this information.
Actually, that's one thing that I would mention is we've been either involved in or very close to a number of big emergencies where all the cell phone towers went down.
Wow.
And everybody was thinking, I'll just call somebody if I need something. No, you can't call anybody.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared for that as well.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to do it without getting on the internet.
Yep. The next thing is Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson. Make sure they are ready and you have their little buddies there with them that help them along. Make sure you know how to use them. And it's very possible you may have to defend yourself and your family. And so, you know, just make sure you're ready. By the way, guys, some of these things are from Pastor Mark Henry. Go check him out. He is so good. He doesn't have a very big following, but he should. And he is super smart. He used to be a missionary over in Africa, I think. And so he's into a lot of this prepping stuff because that's how they had to live over there when they were missionaries. And so some of these ideas are coming from him. But guys, this is just common sense. This is just common prepping sense.
Some of the things that, like when Tara was talking about certain defense items, you probably wouldn't need to use it. It's just mainly the idea is you just know you're okay. And
yeah.
It's funny because we live in Wyoming, and in Wyoming, it's a deterrent to people that have ill desires for you, because people know that most likely where they go, they will be met with resistance.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have a plan to get out. Have maps of your town, maps of your city, have a plan to get out. Let your family members know where you're going. When we were on our vacation and it was our 3 boys here, they thought there was one day the wind had turned. They thought they might have to evacuate. And my son was like, okay, Mom, we're planning on going down to Casper if we need to. We're like, okay. Then I'm not kidding. It was like, what? 3 or 4 hours later, he's like, okay, Mom, we had to change our plans. Now we're going to head to Gillette if we have to evacuate because it looks like they may have to close the road going down to Casper. Let your friends and family know as soon as you think you might have any type of plans to evacuate, where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And that way you can keep track of each other. At least you're in a city, you know. If you're in the same city, then you can maybe find each other a little bit better if you get cut off and that type of thing.
And in that situation, when we left, well, first of all, some people said, well, you left your kids there? Well, 2 of them are adults.
One's almost 30.
And one of them is our youngest is getting close enough. And the thing that we were realizing is first of all, before we left, we thought ahead. We were prepared. Had our emergency preparedness planning. We took everything that needed to get out of the house if it was going to burn, and we put it all in a specific location where it was easy for them to load it up. And it was we kind of ran through with them. This is the plan. You can change the plan. You're adults if you want. And they did. They told us, here's what we might do differently.
The maps were sitting on top of the evacuation stuff, ready to go.
So when we left, even though there was not really a likelihood that our house was going to be affected directly, we were prepared for that just in case, because we weren't going to be here. And it was a great experience for the boys, the men, because they're men. They're becoming men. They're transitioning. Well, one of it is a man. But
2 are.
2 are, yeah. And it's good for them to fly without a net, figure out on that. So that's kind of why we were prepared, and then they took over.
Yep.
Yeah.
The next thing is have a heat source if you live in a cold climate. We have these little buddy heaters. They are great. Absolutely love them. They are great from what I've heard. We have not used them yet. We actually should test those out and make sure.
Our oldest son has used them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Our oldest son, he absolutely loved it when he was living in his tiny house RV. It kept him really toasty, he said.
Yeah, now this kind is specifically, you need to make sure the one you buy is specifically for indoors.
Yeah. Because
you can't just use any kind of propane or gas heater indoors, or you might kill yourself with carbon monoxide. So don't do that. Make sure that what you buy is for indoor use.
Yeah.
And that you follow the instructions and use it right. We're not responsible if you do something stupid.
The next thing is, on the 5th, make sure you have everything charged before you go to bed. Your cell phone, your computer, if you have backup batteries for your phone, computer, anything like that, to charge them off of, you know, the little like not mini generators, but solar chargers and things like that. Get all of those charged up and ready to go. Don't go to bed without everything charged. The next thing is follow your intuition, okay? If you just have an inkling that something is not right, investigate, ask questions, and start looking around and paying attention to what's going on, okay? If you see a mob walking down the street, most people aren't gonna just sit and watch TV while this mob is walking down the street. Watch them. What are they doing? What can you do to protect yourself? You know, if they're right there in front of your house or your apartment, do you need to blockade yourself into your house or your apartment to protect yourself? Watch what's going on around you and use your intuition, and don't be afraid to defend yourself. Do what you need to warn others. It's better to be safe than sorry, to go warn your neighbors and say, you know what, I think we need to get out. I don't know for sure if something's going to happen, but I just don't have a good feeling about this. Let's go ahead and leave now, and be wrong, than to not say that and totally regret it later, either through death or being painfully wounded You know, you just don't know. So use your intuition.
And if there's a mob going down the street doing stuff, if you don't have to, best not to engage them.
Yeah, try
best not to be seen. And there's a point where you might have to defend, and then you have to do what you have to do. But the thing is, those kinds of groups are focused on some specific thing, or at least some sort of chaos.
Usually. And
if they don't see you, you won't be part of the thought that they have.
Yeah. The next thing is, don't get so upset. Okay, I know we're doing these prepping videos and all that, but we know people who are literally awake at night worrying over this election. And a lot of them are Christians. Listen, if you are a Christian and you are staying awake at night worrying about this, you are telling God, well, what did you say at the men's Bible study the other day? You also said something else.
Well, yeah, I said that God's a liar, yeah.
When you're up worrying about this stuff all night long, you're telling God that he's a liar and that he's not going to take care of you. Think about that. Seriously, think about that. If you are getting so upset over this election that it is making you physically sick, making you physically exhausted, worn out, upset, worried to the point where you're about to collapse, there are a lot of people who are like this. They're like, I am so worried about this election. I just don't know what's going to happen.
And the worst part about the worrying is that the people that are saying that don't have the power to do anything. Or if they had the power to do something, it would be something that they wouldn't think is reasonable enough to do. So if you don't have the power to do something and you worry about it, you're worrying about something you absolutely can't control. So,
you can't control it. And it's the funniest thing, because I saw this video on this bakery. I love this bakery video. I keep telling everybody about it. Mike's like, oh, brother, I gotta hear.
I'm trying to remember the bakery story. Oh. It'll probably come to me after.
So this bakery in Pennsylvania, swing state, sells cookies.
That story.
I know, but it's so cool. So sells cookies, and they have one candidate on one cookie and the other candidate on the other cookie, and then they have not a neutral candidate, but like a third party type donut or cookie or something. And so they're taking votes by who buys which cookie. And it's so funny because they said Kamala's got 6,000, well, this was at the time of the filming. I'm sure it's way more now, but 6,000 cookies at the time of the filming. The third party had 9,000 cookies, and Trump had 20,000 cookies. But what was funny with this was they said they've been doing this for the last several elections, and the only one they got wrong was 2020. I don't think they got it wrong. And here's the thing. As Christians, we're not going to worry about it. There may be cheating. There may be all kinds of stuff. But God is going to take care of us. God will put those people into office. And quite frankly, even if the good guys get elected, if Trump gets elected, he may not make it to January to be sworn in. We don't know. It could, any number of things could happen. But as Christians, I'm not sitting here losing sleep over it.
Well, and don't sit and build in your mind all the possible bad things that could happen. You're creating...
Nothing may happen.
If things might be fine. And if something bad happens, it would be a single thing. And if you're prepared, you can deal with that thing as it comes. If you try to figure out all the possible bad things that could happen and try to solve those things ahead of time, you're going to have a heart attack from the anxiety.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
The main thing is, if you are a Christian, you're just going to have to trust God. Know that God is sovereign. He puts our kings and leaders in office. We know that he is in control no matter what. Read your Bible. Listen to good Bible-based pastors. Don't listen to guys who are just going to be going on, and don't be listening to all of these crazy things where people are freaking out all the time. If you're watching people freak out all the time, you're going to freak out all the time.
Well, and freaking out and worrying about it is not going to make your life better.
No,
it's probably
really
going
not.
to shorten your life more than the thing you're worrying about.
Yeah. So those are the things that you should do before Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Please go visit us at livingonadime.com. We will see you guys next time.
Bye.